Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We'll, with that call to order, let's take roll real quick. And if I could remind everybody to please keep your computers on mute while you are not speaking. It'll help us with feedback and echo. Starting with the roll call, Mr. Alton Heathcote. Alton, can you respond, please?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ricky Bursack.
Here.
Mr. Robert Campbell.
Here.
Ms. Kathy Ware.
Here.
Mr. Stephen King.
Here.
Okay, all members are present. All members of the committee are present. Maria, would you please give us a statement of necessity?
Yes, thank you, Michael. Let me pull it up. This is a scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Architectural and Engineer Examiners Engineering Committee, which is taking place by electronic means utilizing the WebEx teleconference application on Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. Notice that this meeting was posted to the board's website on July 30th, 2020. As there is not a physical quorum present, the statement of necessity is read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State as required by statute. Pursuant to TCA 8-44-108B2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. That determination must include a recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based. Further, TCA 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require a timely action by the body. A physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communications is necessary. As stated, this is a regularly scheduled meeting for the Engineering Committee. The purpose of this meeting with members attending by teleconference is to address regularly scheduled matters of the board in the most safe manner due to COVID-19. All voting will be conducted by roll call. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Maria. And I guess we can move right into the new business category. Alton, the first item we have is the ABET accreditation reviews. And if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and kind of work through this. You will all see the file and the email. And what this is an opportunity for members of the board to sign up to be a part of the accreditation reviews for, at this point, Austin Peay University and Tennessee Tech University. Just wanted to make you all aware of that and see if there was any interest from members of the board who would like to attend those reviews.
Hey, Michael, just for point of clarification, it looks like Austin Peay is an engineering technology program assessment or accreditation. Does anybody have strong feelings one way or the other about attending or as an observer for that accreditation review? Obviously, Austin Peay is in Clarksville, Tennessee.
I don't.
Yeah, I was thinking we would not necessarily be interested in witnessing the technology visit if we don't recognize that as a qualifying degree.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. I feel like that may constitute some notion that we support that. Our board is not, we don't have the ability to support it based on our laws and rules. So unless anybody expresses a strong interest in attending that for whatever reason, I'd say that we pass on providing an observer for that review. Does anybody have anything to add to that or any questions about that?
Alton, this is Robert. I agree. Are we supposed to be seeing something on the screen?
I think Dustin, Michael was emailing the information to Dustin, and Dustin was going to try to get it up on the screen for us. He may be in process on that right now, Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, so is it the second file in the zip drive that we're looking at here?
Dustin, that is the file that is called, yes, ABET, a cred review.
Okay, one second.
This is Kathy. I don't have access to view what's on the screen, so if you could refer me to a specific email that has that as an attachment with like a date timestamp or something, then I can find it in my files.
Hey, Kathy, I think Wanda sent that out this morning, a revised agenda, and it had that as an attachment to it.
Yes, it is in the folder that I placed on the H drive for you, Kathy.
Are you talking about on SharePoint?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
It says A-Beta Credit Review Observer Info.
Okay. I don't have SharePoint open, so I'll have to just wing it.
Kathy, what it is Beth Mundy from ABET had sent out a notification to the licensing board asking if we wanted to have an observer for accreditation reviews. One of the reviews was for Engineering Technology Accreditation Commission at Austin T. The other one was for EAC and ETAC at Tennessee Tech. The one at Austin T was November 1st through the 3rd, and the one at Tennessee Tech is November 15th through November 17th. And obviously, we would be observers. We wouldn't be voting or reviewing. I think all of us have probably done this. I've been involved in that process at 3 of the universities. But again, I think our discussion generally about Austin P was, since we don't acknowledge an engineering technology degree as a path to licensure necessarily, unless NCAAS rules that it is, in fact, it does meet the minimum requirements. And I don't see that we need to provide an observer for that one. I think that was the general discussion. But the second part of the discussion, unless somebody feels strongly they want to go to the ETAC review for Austin P, was Tennessee Tech. And again, as we all know, they are accredited through EAC. And would anybody want to volunteer to go to the accreditation review for Tennessee Tech's School of Engineering?
Hey, Alton, this is Robert. I mean, I can go. My calendar's open during those times. I'm supposed to be coming the week before. I'm coming back from the Masters, so I think I should be able to get back in time. And I said that for Ricky's benefit.
Well, I think if
Robert,
you're coming back to the
appreciate
Masters, then you doggone sure ought to go observe this.
Well, it is my alma mater. Yeah, and I know yours too. But yeah, I think I'm open. My calendar's open. I think it's a good. Sign me up for it.
Okay, good. We have a volunteer, and I think typically we usually provide one observer, unless somebody else feels compelled that they want to go. Does anybody else feel like they would like to go and attend as an observer? If not, then Michael, I know this doesn't require a vote. All we need to do is reply back to Ms. Mundy that Robert Campbell will serve as the board's observer.
That is correct, and I will take care of that this afternoon. And I will, Robert, if you don't mind, I'll like to tag along
Sure.
as well, if that's okay with you.
No, that's no problem. I can show you where Ralph's Donuts is and a few other various places, and we can make a couple days out of it. Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh, I just got healthy again. Okay, well, that's great. Um, with that taken care of, we can move on to the applications. Wanda has placed in the file a summary of each of the applications. I believe they go alphabetically. So that would have us starting off with the Alavi file, ALAVI.
Very good. Well, I don't know if everybody has that in front of them. Kathy, have you been able to get access to the file that Wanda sent you yet?
No, I have both my iPad and my iPhone in front of me, but I don't have a laptop, and I can't make it work on an iPad. Wanda, if you could send me the PDF, I didn't realize I had to have SharePoint access. I'm really sorry about that. Is there any chance you could just send me by email the documents that are posted to SharePoint?
Yeah, I can, excuse me, I can send them to you, but they'll be secure, so I hope you can open.
Oh, well, never mind. Never mind. Any more time. Yeah.
Well, I will at least send you the transmittal sheet. I should be able to do that.
I think I got that already.
Oh, you
Yeah,
have
that's
that?
everything I
Okay.
got. So that's
Okay.
that's why I didn't know I had to have anything else. So sorry. I'll just listen and chime in. Thank you.
Okay.
Kathy, which one do you need? I can send them to you. I've got them open here for the most part.
Hey, if you can send them, that'd be great. Just send it to my email address. I can open them up.
Let me go through this, Kathy, more, I guess, for your benefit, so that you'll know and be able to understand along with the rest of us what we're talking about. Those of us that actually have access to it. This was Miss Alati submitted a letter of request asking us to waive the requirement for a missing course in her Bachelor of Science transcript. It noted a deficiency in either biology or chemistry. I think originally she submitted her request for licensure. And I know Robert, I think you were one of the ones to review it, weren't you?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. And
yeah, I reviewed it too. This is Kathy. I remember I reviewed it.
I thought you had, Kathy. I think Robert, Kathy, you had actually disapproved it based on the fact that she was deficient, and Robert asked that we send it to Dr. Smith for his evaluation and determination, and Dr. Smith's determination came back that it doesn't meet the letter nor the spirit of the basic math, science, mathematics, and that she needed to complete a course in either biology or chemistry to satisfy the deficiency. So I think she'd stated that she was pursuing her PhD from SMU, and that in that pursuit of the PhD, she got credit for a course that satisfied one of the mathematics deficiencies, but to my knowledge, there was nothing to indicate that she had satisfied the requirements associated with the science. So does anybody else have any comment about that?
Alton.
Yeah, Ricky. Yes, sir.
I think, looking at the file, I think Alavi is a male, based on some of the transcripts of his academic record, calling him a son and a him. And I just mentioned that so that we don't get mixed up. There is a female in the group, and we don't get mixed up on who we're talking about.
Thank you. You're right.
And I'll say that I approved Alavi, and the reason I did that was the missing biology or chemistry course. What I believe we have done in the past is we looked when a person goes on to get a master's, and this person's got a master's and is now working on a doctorate. If there were courses in there that we looked at and figured they were getting kind of science, I think we have approved people in the past who were missing a course or two, but look like in their graduate courses kind of covered some ground there. And so I approved because I felt like we had done that in the past, but I have no problem at all if the committee feels like we want to say they need to take another course or two.
And by the way, can everyone see my screen? I don't know if I'm got the right thing open.
I can.
I see.
Can.
I can too.
Okay, yeah. Is this
Yeah.
what you guys needed open, or was there something else?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
Dr.
that's
Smith.
exactly.
Yeah, that's Dr. Smith's evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah, there are other components to that. I think beyond this, there were other parts to that, but again, apparently, candidate Alavi is, according to Dr. Smith, still deficient. Ricky, you're exactly correct, and I think recently we have voted to approve licensure for somebody who may have been deficient in a biology or chemistry or physics course when their practice didn't necessarily require it. And I noticed that candidate Alavi has been in practice for, I think it said 16 years, a little over 16 years. So I would ask for other comments or a motion from the board, from the committee.
Well, this is Kathy. I basically denied her on the first time around, I think, and then when I looked at Dr. Smith's review and he made reference to the fact that a class is available online via SMU because he had looked it up himself, then I thought that was pretty easy for her to fulfill the requirement. And I always try to, I've said this for years, is be consistent. And so in the past, we've told people, go take the class. That's just what you need to do. Find a way, get it done. And that's why I turned her down, because I felt like everybody else that comes before us, we ask them to go do that. And Dr. Smith's memo just highlighted that fact for me. So that's why I said it.
Alton, this is Robert, and I think the reason I asked for Dr. Smith to do the evaluation is because we have in the past talked about alleviating some of that, but I think that with his evaluation, I've always tried to get his evaluation to make sure that there was nothing equivalent, and it doesn't look like that. He goes into their master's program too, and it doesn't look like there's anything equivalent in there. So that's why I said no. And if they're in another program, I wouldn't think it would be hard to get that done at the same time.
Robert, do you recall, maybe not in June, could have been June, but it could have been April, where we had a very similar situation to this, and the individual was deficient in basically one semester of either chemistry or biology, but we didn't think, because of what their practice was and because they had practiced for a considerable amount of time, that it had impeded their ability to perform their professional services. And we actually approved them even though they were one class short.
Yeah, Alton, I'm not going to. I think we've done that in the past, but I don't remember the particular circumstances. I thought they were all less than 3 hours, and the people had been practicing for quite a while, so that they had a they were already pretty well set. But I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, that we have done that, but I don't remember the particular circumstances, because we've also denied people that were deficient as well after a Dr. Smith review. So you may very well be 1,000% right, and I just can't remember the particular circumstances.
Yeah, I want to, again, just like Kathy said, in the interest of being consistent, I want to make sure that we don't grant that award by committee to, I think it's happened more than once for a similar circumstance, and not grant it to someone else. Ricky, I think that's what you were referring to, isn't it?
Well, that was my memory, that somebody was short, say a biology class or a chemistry class, as this candidate is, and it may have been just one class. I don't know. Instead of this one, it looks like 2 courses. But I thought we looked at the master's program and found an equivalency, or what we thought was one. And when I looked at it, there was a course on theory of elasticity and plasticity, and I thought something with plastics there. That's got to be some chemistry there. But I certainly yield to Dr. Smith's expertise on coursework. So if Dr. Smith looked at the master's program and didn't see anything, that's probably, I will definitely go along with that.
Well, this is Kathy. Again, I don't have her stuff right in front of me. Is she a structural practicing engineer? What's her specialty? Because I think the reason I ask is I think that in the instance in which we waived a general science credit was, and I'm just operating off memory, was due to a 20-year or so structural that was both a PE and an SE looking for comedy. And we discussed the fact that in general, that was not going to add anything to their applicability of engineering principles and practices, given that they were in the structure.
I think you're right, Kathy. And he it looks like he has been working as a structural engineer.
I don't remember the specifics, but all of that, what I was just sharing, is what I think, when it was that I think we might have passed some kind, that you're calling, we passed a waiver on something like that. And this person has 16 years experience and is getting a PhD in structural?
Yes.
I'm trying to find the one we had from last time. I'm about there.
I also struggle a little bit with turning down somebody because of biology class when they're getting a PhD. But we gotta, we need to be consistent, as you said.
I know. I mean, there's so many different variables. You try to be consistent on this, and then you end up not being consistent on that. I totally get it. And I agree with you. I hate to turn people down for comedy when they're extremely well, overall extremely well qualified, and then you pull out some little technicality that trips them up or something. I hate to do that too. Right. I will say that when you said that they took a class in plasticity, that's a structural class, and so that's why I asked the question, because that triggered a memory in my mind.
Gotcha.
So that's a structural class for them, theory of plasticity and elasticity.
Got it.
So the question becomes, do we want to be inconsistent on one factor or inconsistent on a different factor? Oh, challenges.
See, see. I think the only person not to weigh in on this yet is Steve. Steve, do you have an opinion?
I'm getting back to the right page where I could click unmute. I was looking through all this stuff. I'm okay with approving the applicant as long as it's within our purview to do so. So I guess if one of our attorneys tells us this, we have that flexibility, I'm okay with it.
I think, Steve, we actually went through that last time. I think maybe Robert was the one that asked the question, and you know, they had given an opinion, but there was the opinion that we did have the flexibility to make those determinations. And in that particular case, and I think the one before it, we determined that based on their practice and the additional education they'd gotten in their master's program, I think for the other ones, that they had met the equivalency standard, and we authorized approval. But you know, again, this is the will of the committee. To me, if somebody's been in the practice for over 16 years and they're studying for their PhD in structural engineering, I think it's probably a certainty that they're relatively competent in their field and should have at least met the education requirements. But again, if anybody else has any, we haven't had a motion or a second yet, and maybe what we want to do is ask for a motion and a second, and then have additional discussion if it's necessary.
Robert, are you still looking for something that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I found it's, shit, I got too many things open here. This is hard. Hold on just a minute.
I know.
Oh, God. Okay, I found it. It's Undadi, UNDADI, under the Diaz application. I actually approved him on comity, and I'm trying to see what their deficiency was, because in their letter it says chemistry subject deficiency. Does not include my diploma in civil engineering, during which I completed subjects. And it appeared that they had met in their master's or other, they had met the requirement. But I'm going through NCAA. It's called Anil Kumar Andadi, and it's under the Garcia, or Diaz, excuse me, Diaz, from last time. But their NCAAS one was fine. Math, basic sciences, they had one more. Engineering sciences and design, they had 10 more. So I'm confused. I'll go ahead and make a motion that I'm going to change my recommendation. If he's got a structural and he's deficient in a chemistry class or biology class, I don't think that's going to be, and with the year's experience, that that we approve the applicant.
Yeah, this is Kathy, and since I denied him earlier too, I'll go on record as being a second to that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and Robert, I will apologize. It may be my speaker that's messing up, but can you repeat your motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve. Hold on just a minute, Alton. Let me get back to the right place. I've got 32 boxes open looking for that other one. Give me 1 second, please, sir. I make a motion that we approve the application for ALAVI based on they are a structural engineer with 16 years experience getting their PhD, which should outweigh a deficiency in a chemistry class. It was chemistry, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, it was science, either biology or chemistry.
Okay, biology. So that would be my motion then.
Okay, Kathy, do you accept that motion and maintain your second?
I do.
Very good. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? There being none, Michael, would you lead us through the roll call?
Yes, sir. This is a motion to approve the application of Mr. Rez Lavi. Mr. Alton Huthcote,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky Bursai,
Yes.
Mr. Robert Campbell,
Yes.
Miss Kathy Ware,
Yes.
and Mr. Stephen King.
Yes.
All right, the motion is approved. We can move on to the second item is Mr. Ashley, Glenn Stewart Ashley.
Michael, this is Kathy. Excuse me, I just wanted to point out, since you're new, this would be something that you probably didn't realize, but with regard to applicants, there's 3 voting members of the committee, and 2 of the 3 have to approve. And so if we vote 5 of us, you don't have to have 3 that approve. It's the 3 voting members, and 2 of them have to approve.
Okay, gotcha.
Is that not right, Alton? Am I correct?
Yeah, Kathy, yes, we've done it 2 different ways in the past, and that's why I continue to be confused about this. I think the difference, I think, is that if we want to have a motion of the committee, the 5 of us can vote on something that the committee discusses, and 3 of the 5 or whatever can vote yes. But specifically, I think that it is in the law that 2 of the 3 voting members have to approve a candidate. I think that's the difference. I think that's what we've run into in the past. You're exactly correct. That's correct. But I think Roxana, last time when we went through this, made the comment that that's probably correct. However, it provides that additional level of assurance, and if there's ever any questions in the future, it just gives more validation of the fact that they were approved by unanimous consent or by majority consent of the committee. So she kept, if you recall, I think she kept asking for everybody to vote for that reason. But you're correct. I know there had been times in the past where that wasn't the case.
Well, I think to my knowledge, there's only in the 3 years I've been on the board, I think there's only been 1 instance in which we had a split decision on that. So it rarely comes up. But since Michael's new to us, I thought I would just let him know. So that's all. But very good.
All right. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks,
just to clarify, will I be? Will I be just calling the 3 voting members or all 5?
For applicants, only the 3.
Applicants, only the 3. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that piece of guidance. And I believe.
And by the way, Michael, we're not 1,000% in agreement with that. But I think our hands are tied based on the way the rules are written.
Okay. And just so, all right. And just so I'm clear, the three voting members are Ricky Bursai, Robert Campbell, and Kathy Ware, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, we will move forward as such. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next applicant for discussion is Glenn Stewart Ashley, and his application was reviewed and denied by both Mr. Bursai and Ms. Ware because of negative references. And I think, Ricky, you had asked that we may maybe bring this up for discussion at this meeting. Do you want to lead that? And then, Kathy, I'd ask you also to comment.
Yes, I will lead that. And so I disapproved the applicant and cited the references as the reason. And at that point, I didn't ask for it to come up. I got a reply from Wanda, and I don't know whether the applicant requested this or not, but the question was, if we get 2 more references that were positive, would that be enough to move that to an approval of the applicant? And with the nature of the comments, the negative comments, it would not in my mind, but I felt like we, since the question came up in that way, that it was worth just making sure that everybody either felt like that or if I was off base. But there was a comment in the references of somebody who had known the applicant a long time, 20 years, who knew about the medical status of the applicant. I think there was probably an accident, but they really did not. They said no. They didn't recommend this person for approval, and stated that they just could not have confidence that what their train of thought and mental ability was to do engineering. Then there was another comment about from verifying employment history, where the person verifying the employment history disagreed with what the applicant was saying they had been doing on the job. And so those 2 things, I don't think with people who work that closely with this person or know them that well, that I could feel good about approving the applicant.
Very good. Thank you, Ricky. Kathy, do you have anything to add to what Ricky said?
I think Ricky summed it up perfectly. I mean, that was exactly what I saw and what gave me great concern. I mean, rarely, I can't even think of a time when I have overruled a reference. I mean, it rarely comes up, but every once in a while, people use references, and the references say, no, they're not ready, or no, I don't trust them, or no, I think they need more time, or this, that, or the other. But in this case, I mean, there were 2 different things, and they're pretty bad, so that's why I turned him down.
Very, very good. Thank you both for that. Do we have a motion?
Well, I do have one question. Is there any rule or policy that has previously been instituted by the board that we may not be aware, in which bad references are allowed to be substituted with new references for exactly these reasons? Has that been done in the past? Is there a precedent on that?
Hi, Kathy. This is Maria. I just want to speak to the rule portion of that. I recall actually seeing a rule about references. So let me look through real quick, and if anybody else has input in the interim while I look, feel free to comment. But I'll look and check and let you know.
Hey, Dustin.
Yes.
I believe it looks like the 2 references we're talking about are on pages, one is on 30 and the other is on 35.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on 30 now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
I see
so-
page 30. Can we also look at page 35 too, Dustin, when after?
There it is.
Are you all okay if I read the rule?
Yes.
So it's in 0120-01-.09 under references. It's subsection 4. And it says, if a reference reply is uncomplimentary, derogatory, or unfavorable of the applicant may be required to furnish additional references. If subsequent replies are unfavorable, the applicant will be scheduled for an interview with the board for further consideration.
Hey, Maria, I apologize. This is Alton. Would you mind repeating that part of the law, where
Absolutely.
it was?
Yes, it is in the rules. It's chapter 0120-01.09.
Thank you.
Hey, Maria, is there anything relative to reviewing the work history referrals when people dispute what the candidate has put down with respect to responsibilities and/or work history?
There's nothing that specific, but I do think the board has discretion to require more documentation or clarification, on those matters.
Do you know, Maria or Michael or anybody, whether or not we request, and I think, Ricky, you made a comment about this, have we requested that he provide additional references?
No, I didn't request them yet because I was waiting to see if it would do any good. So if the board says they will look at 2 other references, then I would request them. But if not, there would be no need to.
Is it appropriate to suggest that maybe we ask this candidate for a board interview? If the question is whether or not he has the mental capacity to execute his duties.
Kathy, I'm going back to what Maria, the section of the rules that Maria quoted. It says if a reference reply is uncomplimentary, derogatory, or unfavorable of the applicant may be required to furnish additional references. If subsequent replies are unfavorable, the applicant will be scheduled for an interview with the board for further consideration. So it seems like that the additional references have to preface us meeting with him if you follow that rule exactly.
That would be my advice, Alton, is that you would have this individual submit further references to clarify and clear up any, questions that you all might have. And then from that point, if there's still issues, then you can have him appear before the board.
And if we do that, we need to make sure that he still meets the requirements of the 3 references being registered engineers that have experience in his field. So,
Hey,
is it? Yeah, go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, when an applicant's worthiness is questioned, it's usually one of us, we try to have people on the board of different trades. So I can ask mechanical questions and you guys ask civil questions and that sort of thing. And we can kind of get to whether somebody is okay for the public. This is a case, this is almost a medical issue that I don't feel qualified in an interview to judge whether somebody is going to be safe for state of Tennessee to perform engineering. I'm not sure that I would know how to do that. And I go back to that reference on page 30, Dustin, that this person who is questioning has known the applicant for 21 years and is a friend, not only a former coworker, but a friend. Let's see, I guess one after that, Dustin, I'm sorry.
You're right, Ricky. It is
No,
on
that's
page
it.
30. It's at the
It
bottom.
is 30. Sorry, it is 30. I was wrong. I'm not sure that if I was part of an interview that I would really be able to tell Kathy. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but I'm a little worried that this is not technical ability that we're judging here.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. That's what I guess I was just thinking in terms of if it's his ability to think on it, I don't know. I just thought maybe if we talked to him that might lend some greater insight as to his abilities. But I mean, like I said, that was what really worried me. So I don't know how you get to the bottom of that. I guess if you just want to give him a chance for some more references, and then we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it may be something that's apparent in an interview, but it's concerning. But I think I'd be okay getting another couple of references, see if that made us. And it would be good if because past references were all good. It would be good if we asked for recent references, people who have worked with this person in the last 2 or 3 years.
That's a good point, Ricky. Robert, did you have a comment?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I couldn't tell if I was on mute or not. Sorry. No, I think ask for a couple more references or whatever, and then see what we need to do. But I 1,000% agree with Ricky. I'm not sure that if we interview him, I don't know that we've got the ability to discern one way or the other.
Yeah, we're not.
This is Maria too, and I just wanted to say one thing. We want to be careful just to treat everyone fairly and not get into discriminatory practices based on a person's. Like you said, I mean, we're not in a position at this point to really determine whether or not this person might have some mental incapacities or something that's preventing them from fully participating in their profession. But that's something we can look into more. I just don't feel like we have all the facts right now, but I'm happy to work with you all in determining the best course to go forward for this individual. I just don't want us to make a decision based off of, just one reference. And that's just kind of my advice on that.
Well, hey, Maria, this is Alton. There were actually two of his 5 references, but it seems to me, and thank you, by the way, that part of the rules that you pointed us to is exactly correct. It looks like the protocol would require that if we have a question, that the next step would be to follow Ricky's recommendation and ask for 2 additional references. But I think I agree with Ricky. We should put the caveat on there that it should be with people that have worked with him closely in the last 2 years.
I think that's a great idea. And I think in the rules, okay, I was just looking at, there's a section that says, that it can't be prepared more than 2 years prior. So there's no language requiring recent. It's just a preparation of it. But yeah, you all can put that in your motion if you'd like, so you can be more specific, and this will give him more direction in how to provide you all with the correct documents.
Thanks, Maria. Ricky, would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
Let me add one more thought if I could, and it's kind of a question for Maria. And Maria, I agree with what you're saying. I don't want to be unfair to anybody because of what a reference is saying. The flip side is our whole charge is the health, safety, welfare of the state of Tennessee, and it's hard to ignore a comment too when it's basically saying this person may be incapable of doing engineering work. So I think this is the right course to ask for a couple more and then perhaps have an interview. But a question, this could be totally out of bounds. That's fine, but is it would it be acceptable to ask for a medical reference since the comments are really about a medical state since an accident? Is that out of bounds to ask for some kind of a doctor's evaluation?
Yeah, I definitely hear you. And this is something that there are situations when we do need, medical references or doctor's letter. I need to look more into this, though, to be comfortable and confident in saying that would be appropriate. I think right now we should limit the motion to the 2 additional references, and then we can dive a little deeper.
Okay, see what we get. Okay, well, Alton, I'm ready to make a stab at a motion if that's okay.
Please move forward. Thank you.
Okay. I will make a motion that we ask the applicant to provide 2 more references that of people who have worked or knowledgeable of his work in the last 2 years.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll second. I can't get to my unmute button fast enough. I'll second.
So, okay, good. Thank you, Robert. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion
Our
and a second.
fingers don't work.
Will Michael, will you lead us to the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. We have a motion for Mr. Ashley to provide 2 additional references with work experience related to his last 2 years. Mr. Ricky Bursai.
What that, and to clarify, people that have worked closely with him for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bursai. Mr. Robert Campbell.
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Ware.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. Do these need to be PEs?
Well, hey, Wanda, I think what we need to do is the ones that gave the negative reference, let's assume that those would be replaced with new references. So
Okay.
we need to ensure that he's going to get 5 references total, that 3 of those need to be by a registered licensed professional.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding that, Wanda?
I do have one other question. Apparently, according to the comments that were made by the references, this individual has maybe been out of the workplace for an extended period, and I'm not exactly certain that anybody would have worked closely with him in the last 2 years. Is that an issue?
Well, I'm not sure about how to answer that, but I will definitely get with the team here and get back to you regarding that. It may be, it could very well be that this is his first, I think it said that the accident was 2018. It could very well be that this is his first attempt at reentry into the workforce.
And that may be telling if he cannot come up with 2 references that know what he's been doing the last couple of years. I mean, that might be kind of telling there. May need to work a little while with people to be able to get a reference.
Well, we might, but we have the motion that was passed, and we'll put the ball in Mr. Ashley's court and see what we get back. And at that point in time, I think we can decide on how to move forward.
Okay, very good. Moving along on the agenda, the next item is Mr. Gray. Wanda, I think you're the one that provided the information on Mr. Gray. His application expired in June, and NCAA's evaluation of his transcript stated that his degree is substantially equivalent, but because of our laws and rules, we don't accept an engineering technology degree as an acceptable curriculum. You notified him that his degree would not be accepted and his file was not forwarded to the board for review. He also has a graduate engineering degree. He listened to the June 2020 meeting, and there was this very similar case that was approved. I think he's talking about Mr. Diaz. Is that correct?
I'm not sure which one it was exactly, but yeah, there was a case at the last meeting with basically the same issue, and it was approved.
Well, I remember that. It was Roland Joseph Diaz, and his undergraduate degree was in engineering technology. He had a graduate engineering degree, but it was reviewed by NCAAS, and in their evaluation from his transcripts, his degree was deemed to be substantially equivalent. And I think that in that particular case, he was approved by Kathy and Robert, but Ricky asked for discussion, but Mr. Diaz was approved based on the fact that NCAAS evaluation yielded that his degree was met the equivalency requirements. Do we know whether or not Mr. Gray's has been reviewed by NCAAS, and has his transcript been reviewed, and does it meet the equivalency requirements? It stated that his degree is substantially equivalent.
Yes, his degree has been evaluated by NCEES and deemed to be substantially equivalent by them. But in the past, we never accepted technology degrees, even if NCEES says it was substantially equivalent. But here lately, you all have been approving if NCEES said it was, regardless of the degree.
Wanda, that's
Yes.
That's exactly what my notes show, and that's why I asked that question at the last meeting about DI, because I did not think in the past we had shown any flexibility or had any legal flexibility because of the way the law reads. But I actually made notes last in our June meeting, and yes, we apparently we discussed it and probably got some help with Maria on it, that we have the flexibility. Even though it says what it says about a technology degree, it also says degrees that are deemed equivalent by NCEES as an EAC, ABET, degree. So we did approve somebody last meeting with, it looks like to me, with the same circumstance.
Ricky, I think I agree. I agree with what you're saying, that we did this last time because NCAAS had reviewed the transcript and determined that it was substantially equivalent, and we voted to approve the applicant in June. This seems to be a very, very similar case.
And everybody, this is Robert. Let's make sure we understand what the difference is, I think. And I think you all have said it, but just to get it out, there are some technology degrees, and I've not seen them, that are almost straight up would meet an NCAAS standard. There's some, again, there are a couple, I think, programs out there that may be that way. Our law says no, But then our law also says that we can have an equivalent. I mean, that's how we evaluate foreign degrees. They're not ABET accredited or anything. And that's why we go through this evaluation process. So it seems strange to me that we would deny somebody a technology degree because they're not ABET equivalent, but yet we would approve a foreign degree that's ABET equivalent. If the technology degree can meet the standard, then to me that's fine. I mean, but the reason technology degrees probably in our law the way it is because there's so few of them that would ever meet the standard, and most of them don't get a master's degree to make up the deficiencies that they would have or the other classes. So we need to treat we're talking about being fair. We've got an equivalency method to get people approved. We need to take advantage of that, not just for foreign degrees, but for also those very, very few technology degrees that would meet that. And you're right, Wanda, we haven't probably done it in the past, but I don't know that we may have only encountered this once where a technology degree had any equivalence. Most of the time it's just a technology degree and they say, oh, I'm licensed somewhere else like New York, and they claim that's equivalence, but it's not an evaluation by NCAAS or Dr. Smith or somebody to prove equivalence. So I'm okay with approving him if he's equivalent.
Hey, Robert, I totally agree. I think that's when we had this discussion last time, we talked about the fact that just on the face of it, if a candidate has ETAC equivalency, that's the technology side, that alone does not qualify them. But if they have an ETAC that is reviewed by NCAAS or Dr. Smith and is found to be EAC equivalent, or if they have an ETAC, and in this case, this guy has a master's in civil engineering, and therefore combined, the candidate meets the EAC requirements, then they rise above a no to the level of a yes. So it's kind of a ETAC in and of itself, if that's all they have, may or may not be a yes, but it is by no means a guaranteed yes. If they have ETAC that is evaluated, it could be a yes. And if they have ETAC with an advanced degree, they're more likely to get to a yes. So I think it's various degrees of set and subset. But in this case, that's why I approved him, because his ETAC in conjunction with his master's degree was deemed by NCAAS to be equivalent to an EAC.
I agree.
Hey, Alton.
Hey, Ricky.
One point, and I agree with Robert and Kathy's direction. That's since it seems exactly equal to what we approved last month. The thing that since we're having this discussion, when I look in the rules, the way the rules read, on education, it says the qualifying degrees, if you meet the ABET EAC accreditation, and then there's a paragraph on non-accredited programs that are non-ABET EAC but are deemed to be equal. And then there are other paragraphs, but then there's just a separate paragraph that says an engineering technology program, whether it's 4 or 2 years, is not considered acceptable. Just a flat statement there. I believe we need a rule change to add, because that's a separate item, separate from the evaluated non-equivalent or non-accredited degrees. Because it's a separate item, I think we need some kind of clause added to that says, unless it's evaluated and deemed equivalent.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ricky.
But
I
that's
totally agree.
that will be a future item, but not necessarily applicable to this applicant. But
I agree.
See, I think the difference there is that I know what you're looking at. You're looking at paragraph C. In full, it reads, in reviewing applicants holding degrees from non-accredited engineering programs, whether obtained in the United States or otherwise, which are substantially equivalent to degrees from ABET accredited programs, the board may consider the following factors. There's 2 factors there. So in one place it's talking about engineering programs that aren't either EAC or ABET accredited. In the other one, it's just saying flat out an engineering technology program, no matter what, it's not considered to be an acceptable curriculum.
yeah, when you go down and look right where you are, Alton, E is where it says just flatly that engineering technology is a no-go. And that's after it's already talked about degrees that are non-accredited that we can evaluate. So yeah, I just think it needs another sentence there to say we can't evaluate them.
Right. Well, unless
Yes,
NCAAS reviews the curriculum and determines that they are substantially equivalent.
exactly.
Yeah, I think the law is just so old that it was written before there was even remotely such a thing as an ETAC degree that would be equivalent. So it was just a given that if a candidate had an ETAC, then we knew immediately because there weren't any that were equivalent. So, I mean, I think it's just an old law and it absolutely needs to be changed. That's true.
So again, having made or having created the precedent in the past and having NCAAS have determined that the program that he has completed, I suppose, along with his master's, being substantially equivalent to their requirements of an ABET accredited university or meeting the curriculum requirements, do we have a motion regarding whether or not to allow licensure for Mr. Gray?
Well, not to be a stickler, but I think 2 people already approved it. I think it's good.
No, it hasn't. It has never gone to the board for review.
Yeah, this hasn't been submitted for review yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought we'd already. Okay, so that was the last one. Okay, sorry.
No, it hadn't been submitted to anybody for review yet.
No, currently, if I may, his application has expired. So this would reopen the application process for Mr. Gray.
I'm assuming that we would require that he submit all of his continuing education documentation, even if we said, yes, we find that you would be approved with the caveat that you've met all the continuing education requirements.
Well, it's comity, not reapply. It was his first time. And applications are only open for a year. So it expired last month. So I would just have to reopen the application.
In that situation, does he have to pay the fees associated with that again?
No, because they just went to unassigned. We still have the fees.
Okay. All right. So Wanda, what would be the correct protocol here then?
I would just need the 2 PEs need to sign off on it, and then I'll just open the application back up, attach the fees, and he'll just get approved.
Okay, so are you asking for a motion? What form should the motion be in?
The motion, Alton, the motion should be to reopen Mr. Gray's application.
Would his application then go to 2 of the voting members for review?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're asking for then is a motion to reopen Mr. Gray's application for licensure by committee, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we reopen Mr. Gray's application for comedy.
I'll second.
Oh, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? There being none, Michael, would you lead us through the roll call?
Yes, sir. This motion is to reopen the application for Mr. Gray for his comedy application. Mr. Ricky Bursai,
Yes.
Mr. Robert Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Ware.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And the next item is Mysore Paramesh.
Okay, very good. I think, again, we had a similar situation as before, where, Robert, I believe you and Kathy reviewed this. Kathy disapproved due to the science deficiency. And Robert, I think you asked for Dr. Smith's review. Based on Dr. Smith's review, Kathy, since you don't have this up, I'll share with you that in his opinion, this is based on an August 1st, 2020 review date. Based on Dr. Smith's opinion, the applicant's academic program is deficient in at least one basic science course, either physics or chemistry. That's generally his finding. And he says that nothing in the graduate program fits the criteria of basic science. And if I'm not mistaken, the applicant are they currently enrolled in a degree, a higher degree? Yes, they are. That is the case. They're I think they've gotten, I don't know if the applicant has gotten a master's degree or is pursuing a master's or pursuing a PhD, but at either way, they have pursued that. NCAAS, the manager of credentials and records at NCAAS, had indicated that part of the master's program work, a course in finite element analysis, would be considered an advanced math course, and they had updated their credentials based on that. But I still don't see where there was anything that addressed the deficiency that Dr. Smith noted regarding the basic science course in either physics or chemistry. Wanda, have I missed anything in that?
Well, NCES did update the evaluation, and I do have the official copy attached in her file. And they saw something and changed it where they say that she has now met that deficiency.
Was that just in math, or was it in both math and, I didn't think it was in science though, but it may have been.
Well, it's like math/science. They're grouped in together.
Okay. I know I saw that from Marie Lebesky, where she had stated that she identified the finite element analysis as an advanced applied mathematics course in their master's program, or their master's program, that could be included to address the math/science deficiency and change the evaluation outcome. So Dr. Smith's review, I think, came after that, though, correct?
No, it came before.
Oh, okay.
And then she contacted, when I told her that she needed to complete that course, then she said that she had contacted NCEES and spoken with them, and they did change the evaluation. So
Okay.
she hasn't taken any more coursework. They just changed it. But from when Dr. Smith was seeing, he still said she needed the course. So it's whether you go with Dr. Smith's evaluation or NCEES's, because they differ, but she hasn't taken any other coursework at all. They just changed it.
Okay, so NCEES has ruled or rendered an opinion that she has substantially met the requirements.
Yes, for math science, yes.
Okay, and that was
But
the
we don't
only
have that, do we?
That is
We don't have
currently,
that, do we?
the NCEES or updated evaluation is currently up on the screen.
Here we go.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. I know you can't see it, but I'm sorry about that.
No, that's good.
No, that's, thank you.
So it looks like, according to the NCEES, the only deficiency is 9 hours of general education, which we, for a master's degree in our equivalency, give people 9 hours of credit, I guess, for an advanced degree from the U.S.
That's correct, and she has that. So that deficiency has been met.
So in essence, Wanda, she's met all the criteria.
Correct.
Okay. And NCEES has given the opinion that she's met all the criteria.
Well, of course, they say she's deficient in general education, but we have a policy that the master's degree from a U.S. institution will count 9 hours toward that deficiency. So according to that, she has met the deficiency.
That would give her, she only had 3, that would give her, adding 9 to that obviously would give her 12, and therefore she'd overcome that deficiency.
Correct, correct.
Okay, okay. Are there any other questions or any other points that anyone would like to make before we ask for a motion?
I mean, I don't know whether we need to take this into consideration, Alton, but it looks like she's got really good experience working for a design engineer the whole time, where I'm pretty sure that her experience is strong based on that company she's working for.
Yeah, I know that company really well, and they are outstanding structural engineers.
I agree.
Any other
I'll make a
comments?
motion that we approve her.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? There being none, Michael, will you lead us through the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. This motion is to approve the application of Ms. Mysore Paramesh. Mr. Ricky Bursai.
Yes.
Mr. Robert Campbell.
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Ware.
Yes.
Okay, that takes us now to the next page, which starts off with customer service emails. We have first a question from Mr. George Arentz regarding PE corporate stock ownership.
I would ask, Robert, this appears to be somebody that's practicing in your area of the state. I don't really think, I'm not saying that matters any at all. I don't know if you know them or this firm, but to me, this is not necessarily a question for our board. This is the attorney was quoting a TCA rule. It's not part of our rules and laws. I guess for those of you that don't have the information in front of you, apparently the organization that the attorney represents, the attorney who's asking this question represents, they're going through somewhat of an ownership transition, and some of the owners may not be licensed PEs. It's a professional corporation in the state of Tennessee, and the quote is from TCA. Where's the number? 48-101-610, which is not part of our rules, requiring that non-registered professionals may only own professional corporation stock if the professional licensing board specifically authorizes non-PE ownership of stock in the registered corporation. So, I've been on the board, I guess, a sum total of about 7 years, and I don't think we've ever encountered anything like this. And to me, I think this should be deferred to legal for their review and consultation, and to give us guidance, since it's outside of our laws and rules. But I would appreciate anybody else's thoughts or comments.
Hey, Alton, it's Robert. We've had a similar thing that was a question that sometime in the past, and I don't remember when, but it had to do with this being a professional corporation. I think our only concern is whether there is somebody in responsible charge that is a PE, if they're offering engineering services. I don't think we have anything that would address whether a PE has to be a stockholder or a non-stockholder. But this has come up some other time as well, and I think it gets more into corporate law than it does into the A&E laws and rules. So I agree with you.
So does somebody on our council have some direction for us?
Yeah, this is Maria. I'm looking into this right now, just because the part where he references the statute, and then it goes on to say the board has the authority to decide that. I'm going to see if there maybe is a different board that's being referenced. I'm not really sure. So I'm happy to look into this, and we can revisit in a little bit. Might be tomorrow, honestly, if I can get a full understanding and answer. But I will say, Wanda sent me this when it came in, and my understanding was that I didn't know if the board had just routinely decided on these things, so my suggestion was to send it to the board. But now that I know you all don't have any history with this, then that gives me, some insight. So I'll look into it more and we can discuss.
All right. So again, I want to go back. Is it the recommendation of the committee that we, that at least for now, defer this to legal for their review and guidance?
Yes, if that's what we need to do.
I agree.
Hey, Michael, do we need to put that up? Yeah, Ricky.
I mean, this is this email that's up on the screen, a letter from an attorney, and this person has reviewed our rules, chapter 012006, and they don't see that our rules reference stock ownership restrictions either way. And so it looks like the question is, is this a specific issue the board has issued any separate guidance on? It looks like that's the question being asked. Have we come out and given separate guidance on this issue?
That's a good question, but I think in this case, a state statute that exists would supersede anything that we may have done. But I don't know. Again, I would defer that to legal.
Yeah, I'm saying if none of us can remember that we've ever issued a separate guidance on it, like written a policy or something like that, maybe the answer is no. But I mean, they haven't asked for legal interpretation. I'm not saying we don't want to dig into it and see whether our attorneys agree with this, but it doesn't look like this person's asking for that.
I just want to kind of speak or get more clarity from you all. So, for example, the accountancy board with firm ownership, somebody who owns an accountancy firm has to be, 50% of that has to be owned by someone who is a licensed CPA. So in your all's profession, is this something that, that the firm that you all have, is it usually owned, by whoever, or do you have any insight for me in that regard?
Well, not every company's a PC. I mean, some are just a general corporation. Some may be a limited.
Yeah,
I mean, they're different companies.
You can be a C Corp or an S Corp or an LLC, or you can be a PC.
Okay.
So
or you can be an individual.
So they're citing specifically PCs, which I don't know how many engineering, it looks like our rules don't specify what kind of corporation. It just talks about corporations and says like Robert said, the principal in responsible charge must be registered. That doesn't say owner at all.
And Maria, I think that's the only guidance that we have. I mean, I think you can have an engineering firm can be owned by pretty much anybody, but they have to have a person, a PE in responsible charge of that office to offer services.
Okay, that's very helpful to me. And I mean, this person asking the question did a great job because the Act is specific to it's the Professional Corporation Act. So then it kind of, like he said, ours doesn't say yes or no. And so in the absence of that, my conclusion would be that we don't restrict it. So that's just my initial thought. And after kind of getting more information from you guys, that's super helpful. So I'll just clarify and kind of go over these statutes and look at our rules once more before we can make a final decision on it. But I'm happy to reach out to him tomorrow. I'm happy to reach out to him after we make a decision tomorrow, and I can kind of revisit. Is that okay with you all?
Do we, Michael? Do we need to put that in the form of a motion to defer it to legal, or do we just say defer to legal and let Maria come back with guidance?
I think in this case you can just defer it to legal.
Is that the will of the committee?
It is mine.
Yes.
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 Okay, we got 5 yeses. So thank you, Maria. We appreciate your help and look forward to your guidance on that.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Michael.
Okay. Yeah, the last email under the customer service emails is from, forgive me if I'm not Polish, Dustin Krajewski, I think is how you pronounce this, regarding certifying a plan that is required under the Clean Water Act. You can see an email from Dustin on the page or on the screen now.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and give you the answer. If it's a spill prevention SPCC, they have to be licensed in the state of Tennessee. We've had this question before.
I agree with what Robert said. He said, though, that he inquired about the same thing 5 years ago and was given the okay, since Colorado is a reciprocity state, and this is a federal requirement. But again, the federal requirement doesn't matter. It's what the requirements are in the registrating state. So, Robert, I agree. A SPIC plan has to be sealed by a licensed engineer. If he's performing that service inside the state of Tennessee for a company in the state of Tennessee or a facility in the state of Tennessee, and it's going to be submitted to an agency for review, then my presumption is that individual would have to be licensed and registered in this state.
And let me, Alton, right, and the only thing is, and the only thing that he may be getting confused on, or another guidance that may have happened, is he may have been doing this spill prevention control plan for a federal facility. So if that's the case, then there was really we have no jurisdiction on that, and that may be what, that may have been the direction we gave at the time. But if it's for anything other than a federal facility, then I would certainly think that I know he has to be licensed in Tennessee.
Yeah, I concur with what Robert said. And I would just ask if there is such a term as quote unquote reciprocity state? I mean, I think we all know what he's referring to, but that doesn't actually have any standing, or does it, is my question. But I totally concur with what Robert said.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So do I. But I'm not, well, again, it depends on who the SPIC plan will be presented to. If the SPIC plan is in compliance, is on a federal facility, and it has to meet a federal guideline, and it still requires a licensed seal. Robert and Kathy, it's your opinion that regardless, if it's on a federal facility and it's being submitted to a federal agency, then they're exempt from being required to be registered in the state.
Yeah, Alton, let's put some other words to that. I think because you're saying it right, but just to make sure I'm not confused too. So if an SPCC plan, since Tennessee is a block grant state, TDEC is the one that approves those plans. However, there are some states that the EPA, because they are the ones that approve those plans, and I assume approve SWIPs as well, because they've not been turned loose, or they're not a block grant state, or whatever the terminology is. But all these plans are approved by a state agency, not a federal agency. I think if the approving body is a federal agency, for instance, if you're getting on a federal property, getting a Corps of Engineers permit, then that probably means that you have to go by whatever the federal agency's rules are. But in this case, it's a state agency that's approving this application. So we would definitely need a state Tennessee seal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, and that was exactly my point. Normally, those SPIC plans are submitted to a Tennessee agency.
Yeah.
And if that is the case and they're reviewing it, then the individual that's submitting it should be doing it under a seal from that were their license in the state of Tennessee.
I think the question also is whether or not it is federally owned land.
Agree.
If it is federally owned land, then the feds have jurisdiction and can waive state statutory requirements. But that's when you're out, for instance, as we all say, State Corps of Engineers. So. I didn't see in here, Robert, where it said that he was submitting to the state of Tennessee. He says the facility is located in Tennessee, but I'm registered in Colorado.
Right. And I didn't either, Kathy. I'm just saying the answer to him is if it's unless it's on federal property and you're submitting it to a federal agency. For instance, it could be TVA, I assume, right? And they're asking for some SPCC plan on the TVA facility. Then I would assume we don't, unless TVA requires it. I don't know that they would, TVA may accept a Colorado registration.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. Unless it's on federal property being approved by a federal agency, and it has to be sealed by Tennessee PE. And if he wants to clarify what he's asking, we're happy to look at it closer. But based on what he's submitting, it looks like he needs to, there's no such thing as his Colorado PE allows him to submit a plan for non-federal project in the state of Tennessee.
Hey, Wanda, did that request for information come into you?
It came through customer service.
Okay. Are you the one that received it and processed it? And
Yeah, I
put it on the
received.
board agenda?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I'm assuming, Kathy and Robert, what we're kind of leading up to is that we may want Wanda to reach back out to this individual and request this additional information from him. More specifically, where is the site located? Is it contained on a federal installation? Who are you submitting the SPIC plan to?
Okay.
This is Steve. I've got a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm a little confused about this federal exemption. Where is that in our law?
I don't
As
know where to
usual.
point you to, but I know that the feds have jurisdiction over properties that they own.
Well, the feds can do what they want to do, but if somebody's asking us, I think the only exemption we have is the, like the industrial exemption where, if it's a federal employee working on a federal project, maybe we could say that's in the exemption. But if somebody's asking our board, I think if somebody's doing engineering in the state of Tennessee, unless they fall in one of the exemptions in our law, then our opinion is that regardless of where it is, it's got to be stamped by a PE in Tennessee.
Steve, I agree, but I don't think we know. I think there isn't. When I say the exemption for the federal, if you're doing work for the feds, you don't have to have anything stamped if they don't require it. But I don't know that we know one way or the other what to do.
And that's their business if that's what they want to do. But if they ask us, our opinion is, I think our opinion should be that we enforce the Tennessee code as far as engineering in Tennessee.
And I think we're going to find out that he needs to. I don't know what information he got 5 years ago, but I think that we're going to find out that this is some project that he needs to stamp with a Tennessee stamp. But and we don't know that based on what his email says.
I will reach out to him this afternoon and hopefully have an answer for you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you, Wanda. Is there any other discussion on this matter before we move on? Okay, there being none, Michael, if you don't mind, we have one or other. I'm sorry. No, yeah, we have one other item on the agenda, and then there's a couple of things that I would like to add. And if anybody else has any other additions, we'll consider those too.
Okay. So the last thing we have here on the one you received this morning is an email from Mr. Alan Cheung. I believe this was discussed at the last committee meeting in June. There's an email in the zip drive folder called Cheung email that we'll pull up on the screen for everyone to see. And Alton, I'll leave it to you.
Okay, very good. In fact, I think, Wanda, you've been through this a number of times with him. I think the last time, basically, he said that, I think he told you in his letter that, you know, I don't think I should have to go back and get my transcripts and have them evaluated again, since I'm already registered in Virginia. Again, the requirements for registration in Virginia may or may not always coincide with the requirements for registration and licensure in Tennessee. So, can you kind of help us, give us background on this request?
Well, there's really nothing new, but simply he just doesn't want to comply. We've asked him to have his transcript evaluated as a foreign degree. And he's had it evaluated by another entity, but we only accept NCEES. And he just refuses to do it and wants you to accept what he submitted. Simple as that.
Okay. Any comments from the committee?
Well, I'm sympathetic to him because he's been doing this for so long, but I just don't understand how we can waive a requirement that is as big as ABET accreditation evaluation when people are going to start lining up at the door to do it just left and right. And I mean, I feel for him. He's been at this a long, long time, very empathetic to his situation, but there's just, I think it's almost impossible for us to waive the entire evaluation process. And I'll make a motion to that effect if that's what we need to do.
So,
but I don't know that we need to make a motion. He's already been turned down. Is that correct?
Well, we can't process.
Yes, he's been instructed to get the evaluation.
Yeah, so we can't
so
really
do we even need to do we even need to have a motion, or can we just say the board declined the opportunity to review your evaluation or review your degree?
Hey, Kathy, this is Alton. I think what we need to tell him is that the committee cannot allow the rules, the requirements associated with comedy registration to be bypassed, and that it does require that he submit his transcript for review. And until he submits his transcript, we cannot process or review his application for comedy licensure.
I know. I mean, I understand that that's the formal answer, but it seems like Wanda's saying that he's been told that multiple times. So if we want to do a motion, that's perfectly fine. I was just trying to, move us along.
I don't,
Okay.
Kathy, in this case, there wouldn't necessarily need to be a motion since he has already been denied, although you guys could issue a clarifying statement if you so wished, or we could just get back in touch with him and let him know what you said. But I don't believe there needs to be a motion to vote on something that's already been voted on.
Michael, should we just then advise Wanda to reply to him that the committee has stated that they cannot review his request for comedy without him providing the transcript that's been requested?
Yes, sir.
Okay. would anybody like to add to, edit, amend that recommendation or direction? Okay. If not, then Wanda, please consider that your direction.
I got you.
And thank you for your patience with this individual. I know it. Again, you tell them multiple times, specifically what the requirements are, and yet they still want their, parenthetically day in court. Well, okay, if it requires us to tell him that, yep, we agree with Wanda, you got to do it, then that's what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
That
Michael,
is,
do you have any?
no, sir. That is the last item I have. I know you said that you wanted to add a couple of things, so let us know.
Two things, just real quickly. Actually, three things. They won't take very long. I don't know. Did everybody receive this NCAAS Engineering Education Standard? I think it was sent out by email recently, but it went into effect July 1st of 2019.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. There were a couple of items in there that I noted. One was on page 1 down at the bottom where it said engineering technology courses cannot be considered to meet engineering topic requirements. And I think, again, like Ricky had pointed out, we may want there may need to be a caveat to that. And at least I know this is NCAAS, and we generally follow their guidelines, but in at least one case each, in the last two meetings, we've made a certain exception to that. But NCAAS has rendered both times that the engineering technology degree and the subsequent graduate degrees gave them substantially equivalent course requirement work. The other thing that I noted was over on page 2, where it says cooperative training activities will not receive educational credits to satisfy the NCAAS standard. And I sort of understand that. I know we have that. We allow co-op if it's a certified program and it's a full 1 year program. We'll allow up to 1 year credit towards the PE, towards experience towards the PE. And I think this is really more addressing the college credits. I don't know if anybody has any comments about that. If not, we'll move on. Okay. If not, we had a request from Chris Waltney. I think all of y'all remember last time we talked about registrants being able to use or being able to obtain PDH credits for watching either live or recorded board meetings. And Chris asked a really good question, and that's how will they prove that? What do you use as certification that you actually did that? And my question was, I guess maybe, Dustin, I'm assuming you're still on the line, you and Michael, do we have any way to track this, like via logins or things like that, so that we can give credits? How would we validate that somebody actually watched or listened to either a committee meeting or a board meeting?
I mean, unless their name, showed up in the participant list, I can see who's joined in by computer. But that's about the only way I could think of,
Yeah, the only other thing, Alton, that I can think of, maybe without, just having just started thinking of it off the top of my head, would be some form of a question or something that would maybe go along with the video, and I don't know what kind of question it would be, but it would have to be something that, if you wanted to dig into it, it could be a generic question, or it could be a question about a certain timestamp, or, something along those lines. I don't know how we'd go about doing that, but that'd be my only other way of thinking to verify it.
The other
At
thing,
some point,
Alan, it's Casey. The other question that Chris has asked me is if it would be allowable, and I thought your discussion allowed it last time, to watch the recording later, which would take off that, which would invalidate what Dust, if Dustin's tracking who's on or not. But that was the other question, is if they could watch it later.
yeah, and I'm not sure what the difference would be there. I mean, it's doing the same thing. I mean, you're still logging the hours, watching it, whether you're doing it live or recorded. But, I think if we're going to allow that, and ultimately if somebody submits that in an audit, if they're audited and they submit that as a bona fide PDH, how do we validate? We require, documentation, validation as part of the review process, the audit review process. If we're doing that, then we probably ought to have some mechanism to be able to credit that or audit it, record it, so that they could submit it as either a certificate or something that authenticated the fact that they actually did what they said they did.
Well, at this point, I think for them to be able to claim it, they would have to almost email somebody to say that they watched it. At which point we could potentially have a set of 3 questions about the video itself. But again, we don't currently have that avenue at this point. If somebody says they watched it, I believe you're right. We kind of just trust them.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of, and I'm not an expert on YouTube, but we do have a YouTube page. Our webmaster runs it. So what we do when we record these meetings, we post the videos to that to the YouTube page. Possibly, I'm thinking YouTube might give you the ability to see who's watched it if they had a profile. But yeah, I mean, we kind of have to know, I guess, whatever YouTube profile they're using. And then it might be able to let you track, who watched this and how long did they watch it for. It may give you that sort of analytics. So that's a possibility, but I don't know that for sure. The only other way that we could kind of be certain is just if they told us beforehand they were coming from the meeting, and then I looked out for that name in the participants list and just kept an eye on them and made sure they stayed the whole time.
So Dustin, you have the ability to see who's joined us in either a committee meeting or a board meeting?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I would think then, since we have authorized that, or we've talked about authorizing that as accredited PDHs, we probably would want to record whoever was at the meeting and when they logged in and when they logged out. And I know that we can't. I mean, they may tune that in and then go watch cartoons the whole time. We're kind of the same thing almost. But let's say that they did, and we have to take them at their word that they were actually online watching us either live or on video. But, well, I guess in your case, what we're talking about is if they attended the live meeting virtually. The other, if we post it to YouTube, I think what you're saying is you'd have to consult with YouTube to determine if they could track who logged in and how long they were logged in.
Yeah, I would have to check with our webmaster. That's Andy Deal. He controls the YouTube page for commerce and insurance. So I would have to see if he's getting any. He has access to any analytics that would let him know, who watched it and how long did they watch it for. I know some organizations have that ability, but I don't know if that's something we could do.
Okay. All right. So let me ask this. Let's say, for example, we use Chris as the guinea pig on this. Let's say, for example, that tomorrow he joins the board meeting at 9 o'clock. He logs in and he's watching it virtually from wherever he's watching it from his laptop, and we go until 2 o'clock. That's 5 hours. I think there's some allocation for the maximum number of hours, but let's say you choose the maximum number of hours for watching a board meeting. How can he validate that? Would we offer him, if he requested it, would we offer him some certification based on the login data that you've got for him?
Well, if he was on the board call all day tomorrow for the entire length of time, we would have his name on the recording. He would show up as one of the people on the participants list. There would be no validation outside of that.
But if that person, let's say that person requested some certification from the board that, hey, listen, I'm going to watch your video, or I did watch your live feed. Can you provide me a certificate to that effect? Can we do it? Can we do that?
Yeah, the issue is not Chris specifically. It is Chris telling other people about it. And those, like Chris obviously could figure it out because he's on that list, but it's those other people. And I really don't think that the question is coming from people who have the intention of watching it live.
Agreed. And we don't send certificates to people for showing up to the board meetings. We just keep an account of who's here.
Although it would be lovely to paper my wall with.
I think so too. I think that if I were in any of those positions and I got audited and I was required to provide documentation that I actually did what I claimed that I did, that I'd have the ability to certify that some way other than say, yeah, I did it. And normally when we review those audits, if somebody hasn't provided, decent documentation or some certification, we'll tell Sandra, hey, listen, you need to write them back and say they're going to have to provide documentation, whatever it is, that they attended this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My memory is that we talked about giving continuing education credit for attending board meetings or watching board meetings because we felt like it was worthwhile and maybe something we almost would publicize because we thought what better continuing education about being a professional engineer, what better could you do than sit one through these meetings and see what all can turn up. So I think it's a matter of us saying, kind of changing the way we look at this, even though we hadn't in the past given anybody proof that they attended the meetings. My memory is it was kind of a suggested change that we start to recognize this as continuing education. And if we did, we've got rules that say you have to get some kind of documentation that you attended it, not necessarily a certificate, but, it could be an email, a reply email that says, hey, look, we confirmed that you attended or whatever. But I know that I'm registered in Florida and I get a email about watching their board meetings every time they have a meeting. And so I assume they've got some way of knowing whether I'm watching or not.
Do you, are they just emailing you, telling you when they're having their board meeting?
Yeah, and it's available to watch.
Okay. But you haven't used that as a continuing education credit for Florida, have you?
I have not.
Okay.
we can look into different ways that may be possible. We can, sit down, get together with the team. I don't want to say that tracking IP addresses or people's names without their consent would be at all acceptable. So we might have to come up with some alternative methods if you wanted to. Otherwise, we're just kind of where we are at the moment.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
this is Robert. I think whoever, Dustin or somebody said this earlier. I think one of the things we have to have is this can't be just sort of an ad hoc. Hey, I think I've got a Friday afternoon open. I'm going to watch a recorded board meeting and get credit. I think they need to apply for it. They need to send in some notice that says, I'm going to watch XYZ board meeting. When please fill this out when you have confirmation that I've completed. I mean, we do that for every other class that we have. People register for that class. The professor or the whoever presents signs that person was there and they went over that material. So I don't think this is an after the fact thing. I think it's something where somebody actually has to send a piece of paper in of some sort saying, I'm getting ready to watch this. Because, I mean, whoever doesn't need to be going through every board meeting for 3 hours to see who jumps on and off. You need specific people that you're looking for that you confirm or don't confirm, or we just take their word for it. But I still think they need to register or apply that's what they intend to do, not just wait till their PDHs are due and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch some board meetings. That's not exactly what we want. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Robert. I agree. I like what you said, and I agree with that.
I do too. That Robert, that's a good idea. And the other thing is, if there's not a slick technical way of knowing who tuned in for proof, I don't know if we'd consider kind of a lowbrow method of saying, send us in just 5 things that happened during the meeting and to request your recognition email that says you attended. What some of PDHs that I get, you have to take a test to get the credit, pass the test, I should say.
Okay,
Ricky, I'm sorry. It would actually be easier for us to track people who come on and off on a live call than it would be to track that, because then we would probably have to have somebody sitting around watching the entire video to come up with the answers to those questions. Right now, I can look at my screen and see everybody who's on the call.
Yeah, true. I agree, Michael. That would be a much cleaner way to do it.
But going back to what Robert said, again, anybody and we probably need to put some sort of guidance out about this. I think that way, Casey, when she's asked, or if Chris is out promoting this as a methodology to get your continuing education credit hours, there would be a guideline for how you do that. Like, okay, if you want to, 1, watch it live, or 2, view a video, you have to contact person X at the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance, to the licensing board, and notify them that you're going to do this, and they'll schedule it and record it or whatever. I don't know how we do that, but we need some sort of guidance so that if this ever does come up in an audit review, that we have a way or a methodology for certifying that it was actually completed, and they can provide certification that they actually participated.
This is Maria. I just wanted to provide some insight, just because I'm the attorney for several of the boards in the department, and this is the practice of a lot of different boards, that they provide CE credit for their, for watching their board meetings. And I will say it is the practice that, these individuals at the end of the board meeting, the board members will say, meeting is approved for X amount of hours, and then it's different every time because the length of the meetings vary. So that is like a special or a unique, piece of information that a person watching the meeting would know at that point. And in the event that those people get audited, there's like an attestation clause, that you can have the person sign saying, I attended this meeting on this day and it counted for this many hours. And you are taking the person at their word, but I will say, other boards do that, and it streamlines the process, especially for board staff, and makes it easier just for everyone on that end. But I don't know to what extent you all are comfortable, taking the licensees by their word, but there is, language in our rules that say, that licensees will be honest and that kind of thing and what they do. So, in their communications with the board.
This is Steve.
Anyway,
This is Steve. I like that idea. I think we're sort of going to put ourselves in a bind and require our staff to do too much checking when we really don't do that with anything else. We require a certificate, but we don't chase that down and make sure it's authentic. I would just come up with a form and publish it and say, this is what you got to fill out and sign it and submit it if you're audited.
I agree with Steve. I'm kind of opposed to having people have to do anything other than just what they already do relative to handheld certificates that they pick up at an NSPE luncheon and they get 30 minutes of credit. Who's to say that they weren't sitting there staring at their phone the whole time, not paying any attention? So it's kind of it's an honor system, and our candidates are already held to a pretty high standard in terms of honesty, and they can be brought up on charges if they are dishonest. I think we shouldn't burden staff, and I can just see this becoming a much bigger problem than we could possibly imagine by people sending in requests all the time. And Wanda does a great job. All the ladies down there do a great job for us, and just burdening them with more of this, I'm not sure how that would work. But I think we ought to just go with the honor system. Post a form, let people send it in. If at some point down the road it looks like it's getting abused and we just don't believe that 14,000 people are watching all of our board meetings because Dustin can tell us that they're not, then I think we should do something about it. But I think we go with the honor system. I don't think we should try to do something that forces people to prove something. That's just beyond what the continuing education program in general requires of people. That's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. I would just ask, you've heard a lot of different things from a lot of different people, and I would just ask the staff, the people that actually have to gather and review and give some sort of comment back on all of these audit reviews, to kind of come back with a recommendation about what you think the simplest methodology for maybe not tracking, but just some sort of a certification process or recording process or a reporting process for this would be. I agree with Kathy that simpler is better. To some extent, we're kind of on the honor system anyway, because quite frankly, today almost anybody can print a certificate up saying almost anything on it. All we have is the honor system to go by, that they actually attended that class online and got that certificate legitimately. So simpler is better, but I still think that we need something that gives them that certification. That's easy for them, an easy methodology for documenting that they did it. So staff, the proverbial staff, as they say on Saturday Night Live, talk among yourselves and maybe give us a simple recommendation for how we can address this, in your opinion, whatever's easiest and best for you.
We can definitely take a look at it.
Alton, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
This particular item in the rules doesn't just address attendance at board meetings. It also talks about professional society legislative events and active participation in societies and organizations. So there are other things that a registrant could submit. And, you know, you could submit, you participated in the Engineers Day on the Hill. And I don't know that we typically give certificates for that, but while we're looking at this, we probably ought to consider, you know, how we would handle the other things listed in this same item.
Steve, it's Casey. There are people who ask me for searching. I don't give them to everybody who shows up, but I have been known to make a certificate for Day on the Hill and things like that. For those who, we've always got some who I don't think it's well known that people can use that, and I don't really advertise it because, you know, but when they ask, they get a certificate.
Well,
And one of the reasons this came up from Chris is he had gone to ASCE, you know, because he wasn't at the last A&E board meeting. And this conversation, I guess, started really when we started talking about, I had been getting questions about y'all perhaps changing or extending the rules on PDHs for COVID, and coming up with other ways for people to get opportunities is really why we started discussing it, I think, to begin with. But ASCE came back and asked me, couldn't I give a certificate that people have watched the board meeting? And I said, absolutely not. That's inappropriate. That is, you know, that's not in my purview. But Engineers Down the Hill and stuff like that is done by my office, I don't have a problem doing. You know what I mean? Like if it's coming from my purview anyway, that's not a big deal. But I don't think it's appropriate for me to do things at the board level.
No, I don't think so either. I would just pointing out that there's several other items in that particular section that there may or may not be an easy way to document that we might want to think about while we're thinking about the A&E meetings.
Gentlemen, I would like to say we don't necessarily have the manpower to track everybody all the time at every event they do. You know, that becomes something that we just haven't, to my knowledge, haven't done in the past, and don't have the capacity to do.
That's why I suggest just a form and a statement.
What if Michael? What if we going back to what Robert had said? If somebody requests in advance that they be recorded as being present, either online or for a recording of either the committee meeting or the board meeting, that we send them an email back saying your request is accepted and logged, or something, just something as simple as that.
Well, I don't think we need them to send us a request. They can just show up since the meeting's open to the public.
But
and like we said, but their names would be on the recording. So now,
I'm talking about.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm talking about most people wouldn't do that right now. They do it virtually. You know, they can log in and watch either the board meeting live, or they can log in and watch it in a recording, and that would be probably most people's tendency. Is not, if once we start having, hopefully we start having live board meetings where we're actually sitting there looking at one another again, which I miss very much. You know, until that time, and even after that time, most people wouldn't actually show up. It's kind of difficult to do that. They may do it, they would do it remotely, virtually. So if we are going to allow that as an approved PDH, then we ought to be able to at least send them an email saying we've received your notification that you'll be watching either the live or the recorded event. you know,
I'll look into the way things were conducted pre-COVID. As you know, I've only been on the job for 2 months, so I'm not aware. But I'm also not aware of any way that anybody followed up with folks who claimed that they watched board meetings via camera when there was no requirement, and we still had in-person meetings. So, in a lot of ways, it hasn't changed that much.
you may want to check with the surveyors. I believe, in case you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the surveyors actually do that and may have done it for a little while. You may want to check with them to see if they have some validation methodology that they use.
And that's what Maria was talking about, that they basically announce at the end of the meeting how many hours or that they can, and then people can take credit for that or not. But I don't think there's anything more than that.
No, we don't. The surveyors do not do anything other than announce how many at the end of every meeting, they give the appropriate amount of credit hours they decide on. That's a motion. And then when that's carried, that's how many credit hours people get. There's no other follow-up regarding that.
That sounds good to me.
Concur.
It does. After hearing the conversation, that sounds good. Like Steve said, there's a lot of honor system kind of things in the list, like making educational outreach, going to talk to the Cub Scouts with some plans in your hand, that kind of thing. So I'm good with that honor system kind of approach.
Is that the consensus of the committee?
I'm also good with that, but I agree with what Kathy said. If we all of a sudden start getting 10,000 of those, we might need to drop back and see what's going on.
All right. I don't think that, Michael, I'm not sure that requires any sort of a vote. It's just a consensus of the committee that that'll be our methodology for accepting that. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yes, it is. And then at the end of every meeting, you could decide that if you wanted to give credit for it or not, and you would then somebody would then make a motion for a proposed amount of hours, and upon that carrying, that's how many hours would be granted.
Can you make that part of the agenda for tomorrow? Can you let Blair know that so that at the end of the meeting we can at least make that comment or that statement?
Sure. I think I can add that, or we can I'll add it as a bullet. I could add it as a bullet under, let's see, is there new business? Yeah, we could add it as a bullet under new business.
Blair's not the chairman tomorrow, though. Alton, it'll be somebody else.
Oh, is Blair not going to be there? Or?
Well, there was a nominations committee meeting on the 7th of July for the nomination of new officers. I believe that voting will have to take place for that.
Okay. Let me restate it. Whoever proctors the meeting tomorrow, if you wouldn't mind making a point to let them know that.
Okay, I can take care of that.
I guess we would specify that these are engineering continuing education hours, and we don't know that the architects, do we know whether the architects already do this?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge, no.
So right now it's just the engineering continuing education.
Correct.
Okay. Michael, I have one other item. It's the item we discussed yesterday. And we may not, or you may not want to bring it up at this committee meeting. It was the telephone conference that we had yesterday about the request that I had about a board opinion or position related to firms that used foreign support for design. Do you want to wait, or do you want to bring that up?
You're welcome to discuss it if you'd like. Again, there's a very limited, actually, there's not much at all that the board could actually do, but you are welcome certainly to discuss it.
Well, okay, good, and thank you. And if I breach protocol, if I head off in a direction we don't need to head, you stop me or us. But let me just make everybody aware. I received a request, I suppose, and it came to me independently. I don't know why, but from a local engineering firm who had a concern that there were firms that were supplementing their engineering staff with designs being performed by engineers in a foreign country, and even to the point where one of the firms had it posted to their website that they had a large staff. Even though the firm was a relatively small firm, they took credit for the larger staff of people that they had in this foreign country that were helping them perform these services. If I understand correctly, that firm that would be providing, the foreign firm that would be providing the services is not part of this firm's corporate structure. They're I don't know if you call them a sub or not, but either way, their understanding, this firm's understanding is that a large portion, if maybe not all, of the engineering performed on their project, their design projects, was being carried out by engineers from this foreign country. The local firm had a fairly small staff who were taking responsibility and sealing the drawings, but the individuals who were making this, expressing this concern, felt like most of the engineering analysis and design was being carried out overseas. And again, our rules about seals, the use of seals, is pretty specific. I mean, if you look in 0120-02-.08, Part 6, all of Part 6 sort of deals with that, about what constitutes responsible charge. I'd like, I'm not sure whether we need or want to apply, and Michael, and Maria, I'll defer to your guidance on this, but they've asked the question and they've asked for a board position on it. To me, about the only thing that we can reply is please refer to 0120-02-.08, Section 6, and advise them that the process for entering a complaint, if that's in fact what they want to do. But I'd really appreciate the committee's thoughts on that.
Is it your opinion that the people that are concerned about this, whether or not they're willing to open a complaint, or?
Yeah, Kathy, I think they would be.
Because I think we talked about this in the past. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'd love to hear, Kathy, what you guys have said in the past before I continue.
No, I was just going to say, I think that every once in a while when these come up, we've been told that there's really not anything that the board can do other than wait for a complaint to be opened, because it's not, we don't have any jurisdiction. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I've reviewed this extensively with Michael and Stuart and the administration, just looking at the letter, and basically you know, there's no actual complaint. There's nothing that the board can decide on. There's no violation of the law and rules. And there's a paragraph in the letter that kind of asks for the board to make a statement so that this particular firm or business can then angle their work, you know, to be more economically competitive. And I just really wanted to be sure that, you know, the board can't say how they should structure their business or give advice or positions on that. And so in my review of the letter, I'm very confident in just letting you all know that there's nothing for the board to do right now. There's no violation that has been outlined. I'm happy to let these people know and respond and let them know that they can file a complaint if they feel there is a violation, but that's just not the facts that we have.
So
Thank
Maria,
you, Maria. That's kind of what I thought. I appreciate you weighing in on that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I appreciate that too. So Maria, are you gonna respond then to them saying that, you know, we don't have the ability to take action unless you file a complaint. But however, I think we should point them to that section of the rules specifically, because I would think that would be what they predicate their complaint on.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to communicate with him on that and comfortable doing that if you all would like me to go ahead and do that. And also, I will say, I mean, I feel like this is a question that's coming, but I don't think this is anything that, like, a motion needs to be made on. You know, we get, unless you all want to, then that's fine.
No, I'm not sure that we have enough information or we actually can make a motion on it. I think we would just defer this to legal and ask legal to respond to them. And again, we really can't take action until we're not supposed to give a position statement. The only thing we can do is state what the laws and rules are and advise them. The only action that we can take is if they file a complaint.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hey, Ricky.
I kind of like your idea of at least in responding, just saying what Maria said. You know, there's really nothing that the board can take action on right now, but there is, you know, they do need to, could be pointed towards a responsible charge passages in our rules, that they're sometimes the rules aren't that developed, but there's a lot of language there about responsible charge, so that might help them if they do make a complaint. Not.
Yeah, I think it would help them formulate specifically what their complaint would be.
Yes. And
Okay.
if it's complaint worthy.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm happy to provide any person anywhere can file a complaint. That's free and open to the public. Just based on the facts that we received, I don't think it merits a complaint. So, kind of where I stand on it.
Maria, you don't think it merits a complaint?
Given the fact that they provided in the letter, I don't see any clear violation of the law and rules. However, you know, if they want to, they're free to do that. That's their right. So I can definitely provide them with that process, but given what information we have, their concerns are all, there's no violation of the rule or law.
Unless
Mm-hmm.
the firms in the state of Tennessee that are doing that aren't following those guidelines when they seal the drawings.
Yes. But that information wasn't provided to us, so.
No, and it
be
probably wouldn't be unless a complaint was filed and the complainant had an opportunity. The respondent had an opportunity to respond.
Yes.
Okay, so going back to what we what we were saying, then can you craft a letter back to them referring them to that section of our laws and rules and advising them that we really can't take any action unless a complaint is filed?
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Maria.
Absolutely.
If there is no other discussion, that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up before the committee?
Hey, Alton, it's Robert. I've got a couple things just to make sure, and this is more, Michael, you're new on the job, and one of the things that we have kind of struggled with in the past is losing visibility on some of the items that we need to be working on. And it doesn't mean that we'll get them resolved in each board meeting. An example is the definition of engineering. That needs to be on old business. We also need to have, we talked a little bit about alternate paths to licensure, whether it's the master's degree, whether we've talked a little bit about technology. And I don't want to lose those. Those are getting to be very critical things that we need to be spending some time on as a committee and individually. But we need to make sure that we kind of check each other at each meeting to make sure that those things are moving forward. I mean, Kathy's put in a ton of effort on the definition of engineering, and I don't know where we are on that. So those are two items that I know of that, we are as a board still working on and still need to have visibility on.
Yeah, Robert, you're right. I've thought a lot about, I think there were 4 items or 4 tasks that we had. One was the path to licensure through engineering technology degrees, and one was obviously the definition of engineering. One was decoupling, and I'm struggling to remember what the fourth
International.
one was.
The fourth one was the international degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course we've got the World Accord now to help us with that, but there still are outstanding issues related to that. Thank you, Casey. And you're right. As it generally turns out, these meetings go like 3 to 4 hours, and those are important items that continue to need to be addressed. And I agree with you. We don't spend any, or haven't spent any time the last 2 meetings at least, discussing those or determining where we are. I think we know where Kathy is, or we are with the definitions. And I think, Kathy, we're on revision number 7. Is that correct? And it may be at least to date, our final revision.
Let me look. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't brought it up because, I mean, it doesn't seem like we can hardly get anything done anymore. So, not to be negative, I mean, it just seems like these are because of the pandemic and not meeting in person and not having, consistency, we're just kind of treading water. So I don't want to lose track of it, but I don't know how in the world we're ever going to get anything done. It just seems like we're kind of struggling right now. So.
Well, it's really difficult when it's such a challenge to share information. When we're sitting there together, I mean, everybody can be handed a copy of something that can be put on your laptop. And I'm not making excuses, but it's significantly easier to do when we're all together. And I think that's one of the reasons that we haven't. Robert's exactly right. Those are tasks that we agreed that was necessary and essential to take on. And I think it's our responsibility as the board to fulfill that responsibility and obligation. And we're not doing that. And I don't mean to sound like I'm making excuses, but the methodology we're forced into right now for meetings and sharing information is really not conducive to us sitting and having those meaningful discussions about those items.
Well, again, my point is, understanding the difficulties, we need to make, I mean, just the way I'm used to looking at things, until an item is done, you don't take it off of an agenda. It either goes under old business or it's got somebody's name beside it. That's the only way you have accountability to get things done, is to keep it in front of everybody. And we have struggled over the last year on keeping those items active on our board, our engineering committee agenda. So, Michael, that's kind of my would be my charge, request, whatever the right word is to you, is, and we've given 4 or 5 different ones here, but those things need to stay under old business until those things are either no longer concerns of the board or we have taken care of them, and then they can go off the agenda. But just not having any visibility for them, not a good way to get things done. It's a good way to keep rehashing the same stuff over and over and over and over again, and that's just not profitable for anybody.
All right, I will
Well,
make a note
Robert,
and see.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Robert's absolutely right. And the problem is just consistency. And we've just had, through no fault of the board or staff, we've just had a tremendous amount of turnover. And it's just really difficult. And Michael, we're so glad to have you. And we're so thankful for staff that stays with us and is working really hard. And Wanda and Cindy and those who have been, as long as I've been on the board and much, much longer. But it's just hard to make progress on issues that translate across multiple board meetings when board meetings are every 2 months, and now we're not even seeing each other. And like the struggles of getting the documents in front of you. Like I said, I got 3 different electronic appliances open right now trying to track everything, as opposed to if Wanda just handed us something. So it's just we're all at a deficit right now in trying to get things done. But we've got to keep things on the agenda. I didn't know that there was, I didn't know what we were going to do. So if we can get those things back on the agenda as open items, so that we at least, if they're going to go away, then I'd like to know. but if they're not going to go away, we need to at least acknowledge the fact that they're still out there, and that would be really helpful. So that's my plea. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Kathy. And thank you, Robert. That was a good and valid concern. All right. Michael, do you have anything else, or Maria or Wanda, is there anything else that need to come before the committee?
I don't believe so. I'm sorry, go ahead, Maria.
No, I was going to say I don't have anything, so thank you.
Alton, I have one item.
Hey, Ricky.
This will be quick. Just maybe a statement. When we are reviewing applications and the information comes to us not on the Tennessee forms but on the NCEES forms, the first page is a summary page where it lists the experience under a licensed engineer, and when that's less than 4 years, usually the staff flags it for us. But a lot of times I'll look at the experience in the applications, and I know they've had more, like some of them show 0, some of them show 6 months, yet they have worked as an EIT in a consulting firm, and whatever you do there is, and I can tell it's the kind of firm that puts out plans. So I think there must be something about the NCEES, the way that form must be asked the question, that is not getting an accurate answer on time worked under a licensed engineer. And so I just want to say there's a lot of times where it shows less than I think it is for and more. And so sometimes I disregard record that is in that NCEES form.
Yes, Cindy makes note of that, and that's why she doesn't send those to Michael, because it says they don't have it, but then she knows they do. And so Michael may be leery of approving those since it says that they do not have it. So
Right.
would you suggest that she keeps sending those to you all,
No,
or if she sees that they do have the 4 years, send them to Michael?
I don't mind at all that they come to us to review that. I think it can be just as you're doing it now. I'm really saying it to the other reviewers, Robert and Kathy, that I'm looking at some numbers that I don't think are right when I see experience under licensed engineers, and so I take that into account. I don't know if they have experienced the same thing.
Yeah, I do the same thing, Ricky. I mean, I just look at it and I just go, I don't know who's in charge of that, but it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. Is there a way that once you guys verify it, like you said, if there's a way that we can just make a administrative change where if you verify that the numbers add up to more than 4 years, then that one can go to Michael for approval? Is that an administrative issue, or how do we need to handle that? Because I would be okay with that. I mean, all we're doing is substituting our own subjective interpretation and arriving at the 4 years. Well, I shouldn't say subjective. It's really simple math, but we're adding it up as opposed to letting you add it up.
I would say it's up to Michael whether he feels comfortable approving those or not.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Okay.
If at any time we want to revert back to the old way, that'd be fine. But let's try this new one out.
Okay, and again, I don't mind anything you're uncomfortable with. Send it to us is fine. But I just hearing Kathy say that kind of helps me know that I'm not crazy looking at these things and seeing that the experience is there.
Yeah, and it's not really an old way. It's just that they can't add. Because
exactly.
It's something.
Definitely they have the experience.
It's something I think it's got to be something about the NCEES form, the way they ask it. The applicants must be answering, no, my supervisor wasn't a PE or something. I don't know what it is, but they obviously are not thinking about it, I think, big picture wise.
Ricky, you might still be crazy, just for the record.
Okay, I might be. I think I am.
You might be.
But thank you. I think that helps.
Okay, Ricky, thank you. Does anybody else have anything to come before the committee?
Oh, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
I've been asked multiple times by registrants that work in and around me here in Knoxville about if the board plans to make any adjustment to the continuing education requirements because of COVID. So I told them I would bring it up.
This is Maria. I don't know if that question was addressed to me. Michael might have more to say on it, but I do know I think we addressed this at our last meeting, and at this time there were no plans to change, because that would be like a rule change. However, there is an executive order in place, and it allows discretion for the boards at the Department of Commerce and Insurance to provide extensions on time for any continuing education that is lacking for licensees if it is due to the coronavirus or anything surrounding that. It's a pretty broadly stated executive order, so there is that discretion. However, I will say that is only in effect until August 31st. It could be extended. We just don't know at this point. But as far as making any rule changes or that kind of thing, you know, I mean, we don't, as far as I know, there's no plans for that. Michael might want to elaborate. Also, I will say this is something I brought up last time at the meeting. You know, tomorrow we have a rulemaking hearing to go over the changes and to get enacted the elimination of carryover hours. And this is something I brought up to the board and asked if that was a concern, that with COVID and just the general nature of our world right now, if that was something that, you know, we wanted to proceed in doing. And I got a very resounding yes. And so that might be something we talk about tomorrow, but I don't want to, because I do very clearly remember this conversation from our last meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. As a just an add-on to that, we are keeping track of, you know, items like these potential rule changes so that we can put together, you know, a substantial package of changes to the rules rather than collecting one at a time and going through a lengthy process, which you all are aware of, and getting rules changed. We're kind of wanting to reach a critical mass, so to speak, and then put together a substantial rules change package. So this is definitely included in that. And yeah, Maria covered the other items I was going to mention.
Maria, this is Steve again. Does that executive order, could it be interpreted to, for the length that it was in effect, to give registrants that many additional months to achieve their continuing education for that registration period?
The way that I have viewed it and kind of interpreted it is that it's effective only to the day that the order is in effect. Like I said, as this progresses, we might get, you know, more clarity on that, but just because up to this point, all the CE, you know, waivers or extensions of time that I've done for other boards, it's been under the order as, because it's in effect. As far as being able to apply it, you know, retroactively, I guess you could say, that'll have to be something we answer if that, you know, comes up.
This is Robert. Steve, we did talk about this last month, and I think one of the things, we can't go change the law that has the PDHs in it, and the executive order may give us a little flexibility in the timing of that or whatever. But we also talked about there's a huge opportunity out there where a lot of people are doing free PDHs and stuff online because of this. Our guys have sort of struggled a little while ago, but then they've come up with different ways to, you know, they found different things that are offering free PDHs or other, like TSPE's got, I want to say there's 14 or something that are free, if I'm not mistaken. So there's organizations and there's entities out there that are putting out free PDHs during this time. So it's something you got to dig a little bit, but it's not overcomable or not unovercomable. Well, whatever the word is, it's not, you know, it's something that can be done.
That was the exact comment I gave people that asked me, Robert. I just told them that I'd ask the question. I really think it's easier to find, you know, free PDHs right now online. But some people are accustomed to doing certain kind of conference that, you know, it's live that may have been canceled. And that's where this request is coming from.
If it helps, Steve, the road show that we do in December every year that people count on is still happening. We had a call about it this morning. It'll be virtual, but it'll exist.
But we're not able to do the big conference that we typically do in the fall, I assume.
Correct. But if you're a member of NSPE, there are 15 free PDHs that come in your membership every year.
Right.
And Alton,
Okay.
Alton, I believe that most, all of the conferences that were scheduled for this year are offering the credits still with paid registration.
You know, actually, some of the ones that I normally participate in, that I sort of count on for some of the continuing education credit hours have actually canceled just altogether. They're not even doing it virtually, but places like AWWA, which is a huge conference every year. They've got 30,000 people that go to it. I know that they've canceled that. I'm not even certain that they're going to do the technical presentations portion of it this year. So Steve's exactly right, and that's a legitimate concern. Some of the normal conferences that people typically, like Casey, the Casey's Engineers Forum that happens, when is that? Casey, is that in October every year, isn't it?
The engineers conference is usually September.
Let's say, okay, September. And Casey does a great job of assembling, speakers and presentations that are all engineering-based or typically engineering-based presentations, or engineering firm operations-based presentations. And it's well attended for not just because of the quality of the event, but also because of the continuing education credit hours that are offered. And if that's not being offered this year, Case, that's about a day and a half's worth of credit hours, isn't it?
Yep. Correct.
So, I mean, you're losing access to some things that are typically critical towards people receiving their annual or biannual continuing education requirements. Steve, that's a good point.
Well, and that's really the reason that Alton asked the question about watching it online, and the reason we talked about online to begin with was what we're gonna, what options we can give people for making those up.
Hey, when we finish this, I do have one other quick thing to ask, but go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Well, I'll keep that. I'll add you back as a placeholder on the agenda.
And Alton, if this really does become a problem, I mean, we might find out what the other states are doing as well about continuing education.
Good idea, Ricky. Hey, Michael, I know that you're at least new to this organization, but you've got previous experience and you may have contacts in other areas, not just other states, but what are other organizations like the accountants or attorneys or et cetera doing to get professional development hours?
From my understanding, there were some rule changes that had already been in place. Most are accepting online, and some are trying to work online education into the process. But that's a brief kind of top level answer right there. But I can look into that more substantially.
Okay.
Tennessee's already, our engineering is really liberal about what we can accept. We don't require that any of the hours be live, and they can all be online and taped and that sort of thing. So, I think we're already there.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And Michael, thank you for your help and volunteering to try to help maybe find out what others are doing on that. I appreciate that. Robert, I'm sorry. Does anybody else have anything else to add on that topic? If not, Robert, please go ahead with your other item?
This is
Additional
something,
item?
thanks. This is something Wanda sent me, and it's, she got a question, and I was kind of looking around at it, and I should have brought this up earlier. But it shows, this is our reference guide for building officials. And it shows, if you go to page 33, I think I just sent it out to everybody, so hopefully you've got a copy of it. But it shows that we repealed certain policies in February 2017. Now, I know we cleaned up policies, but we didn't. And Wanda, I assume, did the person asking the question highlight these things and mark them out, or did this is the way it came?
Well, that's the way she sent it to me.
Yeah, I just don't remember. I mean, obviously, we didn't get rid of Rule 0120 that says the registrant is required to stamp his or her. We didn't get rid of that. So I didn't know what this policy that may have been that was repealed in February. I'm confused.
Robert, I may not be understanding this correctly, but I think what we got submitted was just the articles or items that were actually amended. The ones that didn't have any amendments associated with them will remain as is. But I could be misinterpreting that.
I just don't. Again, this may be a factor of being away from everybody, not being able to look at stuff. But as far as I know, Rule 012008(2) is still in effect. And anytime we submit something to a building official, we need to have it stamped. But this person acts like we repealed that with a policy in 2017. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe they're under.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah.
They are referring to page 33 of the reference manual.
Yes.
And 33 is the fire sprinkler system kind of logic thing that you work through to see whether you need to stamp plans or not.
Okay.
And you know, there's on page 33, there are applications where you have
Okay.
and you need, and it says no, you don't need to stamp plans, but it's a tree, you know, it
is. I understand. Yeah, okay.
Decision tree that you go through, and that was probably done in the 90s.
Right.
And so I don't think we changed anything about that. But anyway, I think that's what they're seeing on 33, and that's just a specific sprinkler system.
But the only problem with that, Ricky, and I hate to interrupt you, is it's under the fire sprinkler stuff's under Appendix G, and this is under Appendix H.
Okay, let me see what she's saying then.
And somebody else was getting ready to say something too.
I'm on the wrong page. I got you.
Sorry, Robert. I was just going to say, this is Maria. Regardless of, I'm not really familiar with this policy, but the rule would always supersede the policy, just from a legal standpoint.
Right. And that's what I thought, but it was just weird. I knew we got rid of some policies because we looked them over and they were either not needed or repetitive or whatever. I mean, and that was great. We did that. But when they said this, I go, well, I was not aware that we did any of this. And I just want to make sure that I wasn't misremembering. Okay.
Whoa. Yeah, I don't.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that I wasn't misremembering. And by the way, at the very bottom of that document on page 37 is spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plans. Just based on the comment we had today. Something to think about.
Okay, so seals are still required, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I don't know what that particular policy that we got rid of in 2017 may refer to, but I agree. I mean, Maria, I'm 1000% with you that rule always trumps a policy. And but it would be, again, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if that shows up that way on our website with in the design manual.
Yeah, I'll go research that, but I just want to make sure that nobody else remembered that before I go tearing through here.
Now, I think our actual rules on the website absolutely still require you to stamp plan.
Yeah. Okay, I'll shut up. That was a question while I had everybody on the line.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert. Not for shutting up, for bringing the.
Oh, you can thank me for shutting up too. I understand. I know where your heart is.
Hey, Alton, I got something.
Okay. Hey, Kathy, go ahead.
I don't know if we're near the end or not, but just wanted to mention that today is NSPE's National Licensed PE Day, recognizing all of the licensed PEs out there. That those people are our registrants and our clients. Just want to recognize them today and say, hey, happy PE Day.
Oh, that's neat. Good. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Any other business to come before the committee? If not, I want to say thanks to everybody. This is difficult at best to do remotely. And as I stated earlier, I really miss being in the room with you guys and seeing everybody. And I think it's a lot more conducive to good conversation and understanding. This is a challenge, but I thank everybody for their patience. We've been at this over 3 hours now, and while I feel like we got a lot accomplished, and that part feels good, it doesn't make it any less challenging. I look forward to the day that we're all back together. I know that we're going to meet tomorrow, Michael. The kickoff is at 9 o'clock, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Then is there a motion to adjourn? Or is there any more business to come before the committee? And I don't think I heard any when I asked for that last time. If not, then is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Since a motion to adjourn takes precedence over all other motions, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to hearing you tomorrow.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
We'll see you.
Take care.
Have a good evening.
Bye, everybody.